Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Dear students, we are going to start this semester with a new method of teaching. I shall provide you my recorded lectures, and you would be listening to these lectures in both the courses because I'm going to teach you two courses. One is pedagogical approaches for translation and interpretation, and other is translation and cultural studies. Today our class is on pedagogical approaches to translation and pedagogical approaches for translation and interpretation. As you can see on your slide, this is the course for MS Translation Studies, and within the bracket you are seeing C. This C stands for common, that this course can be taught either in English or Arabic. And seeing the background of our students, I shall mostly use English language in this recorded lectures. However, in my physical interaction with my students, we can also talk in Arabic. So let's start, dear students. This is my name. Perhaps so all of you already know me, and also consider the email address because this is very significant and important for further communication in future, for exchanging PPTs and material. So you should note this email address because you would be using this email address for throughout the semester. After the email address, I have given my Facebook ID as well. And the purpose of this Facebook ID, given this Facebook ID, was actually in the previous semesters I used this Facebook ID for online lectures to my male and female students. The male student sitting here and the female student sitting in the female campus, and I used to deliver the lecture from female side and asking my male students to catch me through this Facebook ID. We had a secret closed Facebook group where only the students could register. But anyhow, from this semester, probably we will not be using this Facebook ID. Outline of the course. Dear students, remember one thing. When we say the word outline, actually we are talking about the map. For traveling in a territory, suppose we want to travel to Karachi, so we should have a map where we know the ways, where we know the means, by which means we are going to travel. Are we going to travel on our feet? Are we going to travel on, we have a vehicle, and so on and so forth. So a course outline tell you the map for the whole 4 months activities. So take it seriously because this is first step, and the first step is very important for the future lectures, the future topics that we are going to discuss in future. There are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 parts of this outline, namely A. Objectives, B. Contents, C. Teaching, learning focus or method, D. Recommended books, and E. Grading scheme. I hope you would think deeply on these 5 elements of the outlines because they will tell you the whole map. What are the objectives for studying this particular course? Why we are studying this course? Objectives reply to this question. Contents simply can be called topics. So contents tell us how are we going to achieve these objectives, established objectives that we have already discussed, or will we be discussing, of course, in this lecture? C. Teaching or learning focus or method. This will tell you this is a means. By which means? Are we going on bike, or are we going on vehicle, or are we going by aeroplane, and so on, so forth? How would the teaching be taking place among between teacher and the students? The material, recommended books actually represent the answer the question of what material we are going to use for studying these topics, contents. B. To achieve the objectives. A. Recommended books, I would talk about that. And E is grading system, that is the assessment throughout the semester and at the end of the semester. Of course, we only know that there's a midterm and there's a final exam, but you will see that in this course you will have a lot of activities, practical things that you have to do, graded activities. You will get marks on those activities. So we also talk about the grading scheme, or how the students are going to be assessed in this course. So let's start with the objectives. You will see on the screen on the PPT that there are 1, 2, 3, 4 objectives, and I read. Number 1 is making the learners, that is students, abreast of theoretical framework of pedagogy used in translation and interpreting. I'm sure there's perhaps one word that needs little bit explanation, which is pedagogy. Although we have a complete topic on pedagogy, and I would be delivering a lecture, you would be reading the material, we would be discussing this topic in the classroom afterwards. But right now, so that your mind is clear, pedagogy usually means teaching inside the classroom. But the comprehensive meaning, or the extended meaning of pedagogy that we are focusing on, is that learning anything right from the beginning. So when we say the pedagogy used in translation interpreting, that is, how are you going to plan a lesson for a translation class? How are you going to design a book for a translation or interpretation class student? Or how are you going to prepare a question paper for a course in translation and interpretation? So there are a lot of activities starting from the basic concept of a particular course, and then moving forward to the material, selected material that should be used in the classroom, and how it should be used, teaching methods, assessments, and so on. Number 2 is making the learners aware of model approach, at least one, to translation curriculum development. In this objective, the word curriculum perhaps needs little explanation. Curriculum is a bigger term. Actually, pedagogy and curriculum, they are both very near in the meaning, but the pedagogy is wider than the curriculum. That, of course, will become clear when we discuss the topic of pedagogy. But right from, we can say curriculum is part of pedagogy. That means we want to design a course for our students. So outlines, how now we are talking about the outlines. So how can you prepare outlines and the further steps mentioned in the outlines? So we want the second objective for learning, for teaching this course, is that making the learners aware of moral approach. So there must be some moral approach, and that at least one to translation, for our students. The third objective is equipping the learners with practices and skills, and the focus is on practices and skills that may make them well-versed educationists in translation and interpretation. I repeat, equipping the learners with practices and skills. So in this objective, the focus is on doing things, focus on actions, doing and on the practices, and then learning and attaining those skills that can lead toward making you as our students a well versed educationists in the area of translation and interpretation. The last objective, the fourth one, is related to the third one, improving the teaching and training skills of the learners. Part of the skills in pedagogy are related to teaching and training skills. So in if I say, these are four, these can be eight, these can be split into many objectives. But if I say one, if we want to skip, we want to you know wrap it in one objective, that would be making you a good educationist in the area of translation and interpretation. Let's move to the next part of the outline, that is the contents, B part. And as I said earlier, content simply means topics. So take them as topics that we are going to study. You are going to uh, learn them, study them, understand them, discuss them with your friends, with your colleagues, and with me, of course, with your teacher. I am going to deliver a lecture on these topics. We always start with an introduction, and in the introduction we have two things. A, what is pedagogy? As I said, pedagogy needs to be understood in its correct perspective. So what is pedagogy is the first topic A in the introduction. B is translation and interpretation. Now you would be wondering, why translation and interpretation again? I'm sure you have, of course, studied a lot of definition of translation and interpretation. You have also studied many courses of translation and interpretation, of course, going through different concepts and different definitions of translation and interpretation. But, but actually, the concept of translation has changed. We are living in 21st century. So we educationists, we want to become good teachers of translation and interpretation. So we need to have the latest, the widest, and the updated concept of translation. So there is one article in the course that is, I think the title of the article is that translation is the 21st century. So we would be talking about this article for the sake of having updated concept of translation. Content number 2 is pedagogy for translation and interpretation, and here we want to know the status of pedagogy in the area of translation and interpretation. As you must be knowing that the translation interpretation is a wide area. There are a lot of things. There are theory, there are practices, there are strategies, there interpretation has its own branches, and there is machine translation, there are translation technology, there are text type translation, literate translation. I don't want to mention them, perhaps you all know, but pedagogy is one part of the whole area of translation studies. So what is the status where we put pedagogy in the whole area of translation studies? This is very important, because we should know where it is situated in the area of translation studies. And then we would be also knowing the influences from other fields. So the pedagogy has been influenced by other fields, and here is the list that we are going to discuss in the class. Number one is the, as I said, the status of translation, influence of translation theory. So what theories how theories have influenced the area of pedagogy, translation pedagogy. The influence of linguistics, of course. Linguistics has been very core part of our translation studies in the history. although now translation studies is a separate area academic discipline, but there are influences still that are coming from, because the teaching language, the second language, the first language, the foreign language, and so on and so forth, the theories that have developed in the area of linguistics also have influenced uh, the pedagogy in translation pedagogy. Now, the influence of computers. When I say computers, I am using this term because I have borrowed this term from one of the authors. But I mean the computer mean technology, that is the information technology that is used for teaching translation or in the translation pedagogy. So the number one, because I'm going to move the next slide after that, introduction with two subtopics. Number two, pedagogy with these four subtopics: status, and then the influence of translation theory, and influence of linguistics, and influence of technology, information technology on translation pedagogy. Number three, this is number three. A little bit is a theoretical part. Theoretical components in translation interpreting training. In translation interpreting training, and in this course, when I use the word training, I mean education and teaching. I repeat, when we use the word training in this course, we mean education and teaching. So what are the theoretical components in translation and interpreting? What are the elements for making a good translator? We say elements. I'm talking about the elements. If you take the example of this pen, so you can ask what are the essential elements so that this pen works effectively. So we can talk about its cap, we can talk about its ink, we can talk about its shape, we can talk about its maybe sometime color, we can talk about its functionality, we can talk about, so these are the elements. Or you take another example of the mobile phone. There are elements, many of them. Cover is there, the software is inside, the hardware is also there working. The same without SIM, you cannot use phone, and so on and so forth. When we say the elements or the components of translation, we are talking about what are the elements, the components that make a good translator. Again, we are coming back to the theoretical aspects of translation pedagogy. Number four is a model approach for translation curriculum development. Model approach for translation curriculum development. I mean, we would be having a very appropriate approach. You would be introduced to that approach, and in that topic number four, you will be becoming educationist. You would be working as an educationist, so that you prepare some course outlines, or a curriculum if possible. This will be decided keeping the number of the students in mind. Number five is overview of the main pedagogical approaches for translation. Overview of the main pedagogical approaches for translation. Uh, this topic number five is particularly related to teaching translation. Here, the pedagogical approaches, we are not as such taking other aspects in consideration. Rather, we are just talking about the teaching, practical teachings, and the theoretical considerations that should be kept in mind while teaching a course of a translation or interpretation. Number six, this is specific to the interpreting, the effort models of interpreting. Uh, 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 my dear students, interpreting is considered is a very vast and different area from translation studies nowadays. That's why they say interpreting studies, and they say it's different from translation, written translation. So it has its own theories, it has own strategies, problems, and so on. So what we could do, would be able to do, is the effort model of we will take one good basic idea based on the efforts, and there are models of interpreting and we hope that this will give us a good amount of knowledge related to teaching, interpreting, teaching, learning, focus or method. I would request you to give more attention to this slide as compared to other slides, because this slide is telling how we are going to move, how we're going to work together, face to face or virtually. The focus shall be on combining theory and practice, of course, reflected in lectures on topics and practical work by the students on various aspects, of course. This is the base. The base says that the combination of practice, theory through lectures on different topics that we have mentioned the contents, but the practical work is done by the students in on different aspects. But actually what is going to happen between teacher and you, between course material and you, between course material and me, and so on. So you will be asked to you will be given a kind of assignment, a reading assignment, advanced reading by students. Let's go back to the topic introduction. See, what is pedagogy? Suppose I ask you to today that you read the article what is pedagogy today, not to during for the next class, not today of course, for the next class. What is pedagogy? There are a number of pages. You would have the book in your hand, and I will specify the page number or the topic for advanced reading. So you would be asked to read this topic, that is number one, advanced reading by the students. So when you come to the class, you would have read the this article or those allocated pages, and of course you would have some question. So when you read this allocated part from the book, you read it and write down your question. And my dear students, maybe there are some new students right now. They should know that I do not allow any questions related to the meaning of the word. This is your responsibility because you are translation students and you should know how to use dictionaries effectively. So if you find any word you don't know the meaning, it's difficult for you, go to the dictionaries. Now the dictionary is just one click away from you. You can open Google and you find the meaning. So you don't ask. The question should not be related to the meaning of the word, but you know the meaning of the word, but you do not know the terminological meaning. You don't know the meaning as a term. That you can ask me, because this is of course my responsibility. So advanced reading means it's not that you are reading some short story or a novel or any layer reading, no player reading. No, it is very serious reading. And when you read, hold a pen or something for writing, and if you find any problem other than the word meaning, you write down your question on the book maybe, or on your notebook, or in on any other device that is you are comfortable with that. I hope this point is very clear now. And although I don't like to repeat things, but I'm repeating because this is the first thing that you are supposed to do. I would be giving you the assignment, reading assignment, I mean the advanced reading by student for the next class. So this is very important. Number two is video lectures by me. As you have seen, you are watching the my first lecture, which is on outline. So it will be delivered with the help of teaching assistants, and I'm going to talk about the teaching assistants as well after a while. So that these lectures would be, I would be covering one complete topic, or if the topic is longer, one few parts of the topic in a logical sequence. I would be giving a lecture recorded lecture. You would be watching that lecture inside the classroom, and of course there will be a teaching assistant helping you for smaller things that are manageable by him or her. So after the lecture, listen, I have classes on Mondays in this semester and Tuesdays with you. So the Mondays and Tuesdays from 3 to 5:30, you will come to the class on Monday. You will watch the lecture on pedagogy on Monday, of course, and you write down, of course, you have done your advanced reading earlier. So now the second is that you are watching the lecture. So after watching and during watching the lecture, you of course not note down the questions. So the questions are ready in your notebook about this course, about a topic from this course. I hope this is very much clear. This is on Monday, right? And then Tuesday, we would have, now I'm talking, yes, Tuesday you have also of course on translation and cultural studies. You would be of course watching a lecture on that tomorrow on Monday, but you would have the same way video lecture on that, and the same way with the advanced reading or without advanced course. This first lecture you don't have any advanced reading right now, but after that you would have, but you would have questions and you will note the question. So on Tuesday, my dear students, in female campus, I would be sitting my students at from 4 to 5:30 for answering questions related to pedagogy and related to translation and cultural studies. I hope this is very clear. I think I should repeat. Listen, on Monday you would be watching the lecture on pedagogy. Done. And you have noted your questions and of course things that you didn't understand, you don't understand. And then on Tuesday you would be attending the lecture on translation and culture studies. So I would be meeting you people mostly on Tuesdays at 4 o'clock after the lecture to discuss the problems, the questions, for other discussions that are related to both of the courses, pedagogy and translation and cultural studies. This is for female students. For male students, it would be like this. Same way they would be watching lectures on Monday. I mean the let's say on Monday, the same time, of course. On Tuesday, the same time, of course. But then I would be meeting you people on Tuesday at 6 o'clock. On Tuesday at 6 o'clock in my office for discussing the problems or the questions that you have, and so on and so forth, the things that we need to do and to understand, and you know, Tuesdays face-to-face session on Tuesdays at 4 o'clock with female students. On Tuesdays, face-to-face session at 6 o'clock with the male student. I think this is enough, right? And as is in Arabic say, takrar yu'allim al-himar. So I don't want to repeat more than that. Number three is PPT slides. As you are seeing the PPT slides from me. So now you are seeing these PPT slides. You need to have these PPT slides with you. For that purpose, I have given my email address in the very beginning. You can see, and you are advised to send your email address with your name to this email address. What I usually do is that I make groups, and then I send these PPTs or other material maybe through this email conversation. So I make two groups. One is female, the other is male. So I send the material, I mean the mostly PPTs in this course, because The hard material would be in the book form, and you will purchase the books, and the soft material is mostly in PPTs, plus of course the videos that recorded videos that you would be receiving. But videos are not going. I'm not going to send the videos through emails. You will copy the videos with the help of the teaching assistants uh, uh, present in the classroom. So here we are. We are talking about the PPTs. Then the question answer session face to face. I have told you this would be on Tuesdays, both, but the timing is different. I have this. This is also a new experiment. I am doing it. I have two teaching assistants, one in male and the other is female. You would be meeting them there in the classroom, and you would be of course having introduction with them. They would be working on my behalf for the smaller things. But as for the academic matters, intellectual discussions, of course, I shall be here virtually, and I shall also be here physically for those things and for those purposes. Now we have discussed the teaching and learning focus method. Now we can move on to the recommended books. You can see 1, 2, 3, 4. I have given the title of 4 books: Towards the Theory of Translation Pedagogy. Actually, this is a PhD thesis published. Basic concept models for interpreter and translator training, and by Daniel Guile. And this is a very important book, and I have benefited from this book a lot. And if you need this book, I can send this book through email for your reference, for your further reading. I personally have taken 2 chapters from this book, and this is very interesting because the man himself is a translation trainer, interpreter trainer, and and he has a very vast experience in this area, more than 30 years in different countries, with the different cultures, with the different settings, and so on. So his book is very interesting, and it has been written in a simple language, although the he makes he tries to make things so clear that sometimes it looks that he's is more than enough. He talks about one topic in a very detailed manner, which sometimes becomes a little boring, and you feel that no need of, we know, well, we already know, or we have already understood this. The third book is Pathways to Translation, Pedagogy and Process. Kerala is also one of the famous scholars, research scholars in the area of translation pedagogy, and he is a theorist as well in the area of translation pedagogy. I don't recommend that you should but this is a reference book. If you do some research, this can be very helpful for you. Number 4, Training for the New Millennium, Pedagogies for Translation and Interpreting, is edited articles in book by different translation scholars. And of course, benefiting from these books and other books as well, I have prepared a book as well, or a reading material, which is combination of article or chapters from different books. So this book is already ready, and I'm sure this book is now lying with Rafia, the coordinator in female campus, and here the teaching assistant, or Arsalan, here in male campus. So you can pay the money and get this book from them, because mostly it's not mostly, all the time we are going to use this selected material for this course. Let's see this. What is it's a grading scheme. I think this is the most important part for the students, because you know it's human nature. When you sit on the student chair, you always think about the grade, and you always aspire for A. It's just ringing in your brain that I want to get A. I want to, by hook or crook, by this way, by that way. So this is the grading scheme here. uh, I start from serial number 1 is the class assignments participation on regular basis. I have specified 5 marks for your mental attention, for your vigilance inside the classroom, or for smaller things that I would ask you. For example, the advanced reading. I ask you to, okay, go read this article for the next class. So you would have 1 week for reading that article. So if you read that article, you would be getting the marks for that activity. And if you show your participation inside the classroom, if you show interest, if you show motivation in inside the classroom, what is happening inside the classroom, that you are very much interested in learning what is being taught, you will get good marks from 5 marks here in this activity. Number 2 is midterm usually, and sit-in midterm, that's a written sitting sit-in midterm. And frankly, my dear students, I don't believe in that kind of exam. That's why you see only 10 marks have been specified. So once at the mid of the semester, or whenever we agree on the date, we would have the midterm for that purpose. Number 3 is practical class teaching and presentation. So you would be becoming teachers, and you would be going to the classes BS different semesters through different under the supervision of different teachers, and you would be teaching a topic there, as a rehearsal, as your practical work. So practical class teaching, and then you, after teaching your lesson or something like that, you come to me and you present. So there will be two things. So total 15 marks, they are divided. Concerned teachers assessment, when you go to this particular class teacher and teach a course there, a topic there, that teacher will give you some marks out of 10 marks. And then when you come back for presentation, what did you do inside the classroom, and I would give you marks out of 5 marks. So 5 plus 10, and then 15 is 30 marks till here. And then number 4, I'm sorry, number 4 is the development of course curriculum. As I said, it's one of the objectives, 10 marks. An activity, a group activity, again we will see number of students, and then we'll decide the groups. Oral presentation, you will present the course outline or the curriculum that you would have prepared inside the classroom, and then you will give me a written curriculum. That this would be a group activity. And the final exam, as usual, the university system is the final exam 60 marks and total 100 marks, and passing marks, as you know, 65, that is C plus. And I'm sure this is not your target. I hope that your target should be much larger than, much wider than this, because if your target is you are just achieving the less target, the probability is that you would not be. If you target 100% marks, the probability is that you get A. But if you target A in your mind, in your efforts, the probability is, I'm not saying it will happen, but the probability is that you get a B plus. And if you are targeting, okay, my efforts, I don't have time, I don't have interest, so B plus is my I mean the target, I'm targeting on B plus, so probability is that you would get only B. So I'm sure 65 or C plus is not your target. So thank you very much for watching this first lecture on the topic. Let me come back to the topic, which is the pedagogical approaches for T and and I have talked about just the outlines. I have talked about the map. For spending 4 months in this course with you, or you are spending 4 months in this course with your teacher, and learning for the learning different things in this course. The coastline almost is over, but I want to say a few things about myself, my priorities in teaching learning. My dear student, in my definition, in my book, learning cannot take place without thinking effectively. Let me repeat, learning cannot take place without thinking effectively. And thinking, I hope you are with me, thinking cannot be initiated without asking questions. Smaller questions, simple questions, longer questions, complicated questions, but you need to ask questions. Here I have found that the student, they say, sir, how can we think? I don't know your level. Maybe your level is much higher and you're, mashallah, you are intelligent people. You see, the answer is question, asking question. I don't want to talk about our education system. I don't want to criticize what is happening, in our primary education, in our secondary education, even in our university education. But what I want is to tell you how can you be a good student, and this is MS. MS means you are a research student, and research students, they always ask questions. They cannot take further steps without asking questions. And for asking questions, the simplest way is that you always remember this word what. You start with what, always. What is this? Sometimes it's not your question. You say, okay, I got what is this, but why is this? Why is not the other way? Why is this thing is this way? So you can say it's a kind of training your brain, mind, for asking question. Simple question, simplest thing is what is this? If I do not understand this device, if I do not know, so I would start with what is this? Okay, but then the further question. So always train your mind and brain for asking a lot of questions. I tell you, a lot of questions, because the what, and then why, and then when, and then how, and then who, and then by whom, and so on and so forth. There are, you can use combined words for creating new questions. So when I ask you to read an article or a portion in the book, when you read, you always think in terms of questions. And also remember one thing: a teacher is not a database, a human teacher. Yes, we have databases in the computers. So the computers, because they preserve memories, they preserve a lot of information. But the teachers are human beings like you. So that doesn't mean that if you ask a question then they have ready-made answers all the time. Of course, they would have answers to most of your questions. This is of course there, but that does not mean that the teacher is so and so. So always ask the question. Ask yourself. Note down the question and ask the question to your teacher. And if teacher knows the answer, fine. If he or she does not know the answer, he or she would bring the answer maybe after some time, or sometime they also forget, and at that moment they cannot relate things quickly, so they cannot respond positively. But then some other time they will bring the answer to your question. So keep asking questions, because the questions generate discussions. It's a cycle. When you start asking questions, it's like this cycle. When you start asking questions, actually you generate discussions, and when you generate discussions, actually you take part in generating ideas. And when you generate ideas, more questions, more replies, more things, and in this way you know the this circle of knowledge in your mind becomes bigger in this way. So not only in pedagogical approaches for translation interpretation, in other courses and in other courses as well, you are now you know regular MS students, means now you are considered researchers in this area. So you should use this method for your betterment, for learning effectively, and for spending your time in a good thing. So I think this is all for today's video lecture. Uh, you see, with we may be changing for some time the method, but I will tell you. So have a very good time for learning purposes, my dear students. Thank you very much. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.